This is like a scenario. If push comes to shove and Kim steps up to you, yelling in anger, what is your first initial response?
I know what my response is. I'm going to get her to lower her tone. When a person's yelling, they're not, they're overlooking the reality of their situation, how silly they look, how unreasonable they're being. Their emotions are overriding so many other things. And you can highlight that with a level of patience and stoicism that I feel like I carry anyway. And in the gaps when she's done, I outright refuse to have a conversation with somebody who's yelling at me. If they don't take an opportunity within a certain time frame to calm down, and that time frame is short if somebody's yelling at me, I refuse to engage. I disengage. You have no access to me. If you're going to disrespect me and you're not going to talk like an adult, I don't talk to children. I don't talk to adults LARPing as children or children LARPing as adults for that matter. You're not going to, you have no interest in communicating with me if that's the position that you take. We're done. I'm not talking to you. You have no access to me anymore.
I feel like my response to that situation can go a number of ways. But I know that no matter what the context of the situation is, I panic. Because I know whenever there's that level of intensity to it, it clouds my ability to be rational. I become more reactive, more, I'm going to do anything that I can to get this back to a situation where I feel comfortable, where I can even think. I can't think at all. That's what I wanted to say. So it will either be like attempts at de-escalation, attempts at running away from the situation. And if those things don't work, then I'm left with nothing else but to fight back. And I will say that if there's no opportunity for me to have any kind of constructive conversation or be able to fight for success at all. Like if you want to come to me with a problem, then you need to do so in a way where I feel like you're not trying to use that, that physicality, that power, that force against me, or else I'm just going to completely shut down. If it's really in a situation where I actually think that you might physically harm me, I tend to dissociate or depersonalize. It's actually, yeah, I depersonalize in those situations. I become very numb. Whereas initially I have that panic response, and then all of my emotions just shut off.
I think I would also, if I was in physical harm, I would also kind of mentally shut off, but not. I always have like a very aggressive, like defensive response
Mm-hmm.
when I shut off. It's kind of like survival kicks in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not intentional. It's not strategic. It's not thought out.
No,
Um,
it's not.
but it is aggressive
Hmm.
and defensive.
Yeah. Aggression is the last resort for me.
Yeah, I just in those moments, I think my awareness actually zeroes in if I'm confronted.
Mm.
I don't shy away from confrontation. Obviously, like I don't look for it because it's annoying. But I don't shy away from confrontation. If somebody confronts me and they're yelling, they have, like I said, small window of time to get their emotions under control and talk to me about what they want to talk to me about. If they do not get their emotions under control, they're content to just scream at me, you're done. You're done, and you're no longer anybody that I'm going to give the time of day.
Right.
I know that the way that I handle things and the way that I experience things and see things is not universal. I'll always advocate for that level of strength, especially with people that I care about. I'll advocate for them to be able to feel empowered enough to resist and deny that person the opportunity to communicate with them. But I know that's not how everybody experiences things. So I don't have that expectation for everybody to react that way. And that's why I'm more inclined to jump in and protect somebody. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus whatsoever when I say this, but when I see somebody struggling with confrontation, I elbow my way in, especially if I don't see, if I see that they're just shutting down and kind of not enabling, but kind of allowing whatever it is to take place in an effort for it to just be over. I elbow my way in very quickly and shut it down myself. Because I don't have that expectation for other people to do that.
That's interesting, because I see the way that I react to those situations is probably the worst option. And I wish I didn't react in that way. Like if it's, let's say Kim was coming at me and I had somebody that I cared about around me and I knew that they handled those situations better, I would kind of expect them to step in and do what they do best and fix the situation. I don't see myself as a person that is able to handle those situations in any kind of a constructive manner. And I really look up to people that are able to handle them effectively. That's one thing that I do see FETI users being able to do better, specifically. Yeah. They're able to detach themselves more so from the intensity of that situation and use their skill sets to be able to guide it back to, guide people down better than I am.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't
that's
at
a
all
formative
expect
aspect. Yeah, lends itself well to that.
Mm-hmm. I more so expect people to act anyway, except for the way that I act when it comes to that. That's I would say that's the weakest part of myself.
That's your SE polar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Like the most insecure aspect of myself is being able to handle that.
In that line of thinking, I also kind of want to highlight that dealing with things the way that I do isn't the best either, because it's not productive. It stops the abuse of the situation. Don't get me wrong, and it's effective in that manner. It's not productive. I'm not giving the other person an opportunity to express themselves and then calm down and then let me understand what it is that got them to that point and seeing how we can build forward or move forward on a better foot. I don't provide that opportunity. That's not productive.
You don't necessarily want to move forward from that. It's like, well, if they're able to act this way once, then they're going to do it again. And I can't necessarily take anything that they have to say seriously anymore. If I don't agree with them, they're going to go right to that point again, Yeah.
I wonder if that it's a TE seeking thing to be like, okay, well, how can I make this into a productive situation? Mm-hmm. How can I use this situation to navigate it and into a better path forward, into something that's fruitful. I'm not good at that. Once I write somebody off, it's very difficult for me to revisit that. That's, I think, something that I greatly struggle with. Once I've matured enough to keep myself from writing people off initially. I give myself I give a lot of significantly more grace than I used to. But once I have written somebody off, it is so hard to come back.
Something that I see about FI specifically in the dominant stance is that if it has specific justifications for why it has put people in that, in that level, because I always see people on the
Like a hierarchy?
A hierarchy. Yeah, yeah. If I have a specific justification as to why I've placed somebody so low, you've really got to. I've never really changed my stance on somebody like that.
That's all I see when I look at them.
Yes.
It's all I see. And I do you believe that people can change?
I've seen people change. Yeah, I have. But I know it's unfair of me, but I expect them to make it up to me.
That's not unfair. That's not unfair at all.
Hmm.
I know that this is the case for you because you your threshold for that sort of thing is actually you give a lot of grace until somebody gets to that point.
Hmm.
And once they do, it's because there's grievance there that they've done something. It is not unreasonable to expect them to show you that they've changed in a meaningful way.
Right.
I don't think that's selfish. I'd ask you guys, do you Ivy, well, Dan, you and I have spoken, at length about things. Like, you guys can let me know if you see any selfish qualities without like that negative connotation. But sometimes I do feel selfish in that I do, I feel a sense of obligation to
Yourself.
respect how I feel about something. Sometimes that feels selfish. It's at odds with what I want to do for another person, or I want to do for somebody that I care about, or what I know would be beneficial to a large group of people.
Hmm.
It feels selfish to choose what resonates better with me sometimes. Logically, I know that's not selfish because it's not necessarily happening at the explicit expense of somebody else in favor of me and what I want. Okay, because again, that FI response, it's physical.
I feel like people should. I regard myself as pretty selfish. Yeah.
But would you consider it selfish if somebody else did that?
I think when you get down to the brass tacks of it all, it is.
Well, I think we need to revisit how we are defining selfish here. Because I feel like selfish isn't just prioritizing yourself. I don't
Right.
view that as selfish. I view it as like intentionally doing something, pursuing something at the explicit expense of somebody else. Intentionally.
I agree with that, but I also think that what ideal that I set for myself is to step back from the prioritization of myself.
It's hard to do. Yeah.
It is. I don't know if I can ever really achieve that.
Do you find
But I
that
think that people don't regard me as selfish at all, especially whenever I'm trying to be authentic about my intentions and the way that how I do self-serve. People say, well, you're just being too hard on yourself. No. It's like I recognize other people's intentions just as much as I recognize my own. And I almost feel like it's unfair for people to be unaware of those intentions that I do hold.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine calls it like autistically honest. The level of transparency I feel compelled to provide, some
Yeah,
especially with a person that I feel and remotely close
yeah,
to. I feel like I have to be so transparent with everything. They need to know all of my intention and even the thoughts that I have about certain things. Otherwise, it feels like I'm hiding. It feels like I'm being disingenuous in some manner.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
It's like I don't want that to devalue the importance that I hold on that, but I
Hmm.
still want you to see that it's not, just because that's the way that I see it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it universally right.
Right.
And doesn't mean that you need to change for that.
Hmm.
I think that it's more so about understanding both persons' intentions and what they desire and being able to serve them at the same time. Being able to come to compromises to be able to make things work for everybody. And it doesn't necessarily have to be together either. You know, it doesn't, it can be, I can pursue my own goals in my own way, but don't get in my way and I won't get in yours.